Oh, we went a little early today, at least on our clock. So that means that clock has gotten messed up again. I fixed it. I'm going to have to do it again. But we're starting the show. It's a Monday. Let's get it on. DLS Stars podcast starts right now. Happy Monday. It is the DLS Stars podcast on this July the 28th as we welcome you inside the lounge studios. Quick reminder before we get into the main topic today. There's Sam. Sean is here as well. Let's talk about the preseason training camp sale for the Dallas Cowboys / NFL / DLS Diehard. You can get a huge discount on the regular annual subscription to be a DLLS Diehard. Doing it right now. Cowboys show is going out in 2 weeks, August 11th. So, or is that middle of maybe a week and a half?
Oxnard.
So they're going to Oxnard. Clarence Hill, our Cowboys beat writer, is already there. He's been covering for a week, starting his second week there. But the whole DLLS Cowboys show, including our old friend John Anderson, still our friend, but anyway, they'll be out there on site August 11th through the 14th. So check that out and sign up to be a diehard. And check out those shirts, the new Dallas collection ones. I'm not wearing that one today, but you can get that. If you sign up to be a diehard at a huge discount, you could pick one of those as your free t-shirt for your first year of your annual subscription.
Give yourself nightmares for years with that mascot shirt.
Oh my God. Creepy as all heck. You could have the defend the green. The green. That one's one of the classics. You got the captain shirt on.
Shooter.
Yeah, all the other things. Lots of things there. All right, Sean is here. Sam is here.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, Craig Ludwig is not here today. And we'd like to wish our condolences to Craig's wife, Kim, the passing of her father, and, of course, the entire extended Ludwig family for that. Really? So Luds isn't on the show today. But he said he was planning on being here remote tomorrow. So we will see how that goes. Elijah Smith is our producer. Let's get right into it. This is a topic, and of course, what did Sam say after I said, hey, I think we should talk about this today? Sam goes, oh man, I really like to get Lud's take on this. The good news is that we have plenty of shows to do between now and the start of the year, so we can ask him as well. What happened to Wyatt Johnston in the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs? Well, why do we bring this up? Well, because Wyatt Johnston has blown us away in his early NHL career by being very mature and successful at a young age, not looking the least bit flustered when put into high-pressure situations at the NHL level, key points in a game, playoffs, deep into the playoffs. He just seems to be very clutch and very much, as I said before, mature beyond his years. Then last year took over, and I wouldn't say he was bad, but he had a regression from both the 24 playoffs and also the regular season. And to my point, we were talking about Jason Robertson last week and how he, from the end of the Christmas break, they have a 3-day break for the holidays every year in the NHL, 24th, 25th, 26th. From the 27th through the end of the regular season, Robo had the second highest goal total in the league, fourth highest point total. Wyatt Johnston scored one fewer goals. He was tied for fifth most goals in the league from that span. So he ended the regular season. It was about 49 games, so just a little under 50, a little more than half a season. One of the highest scoring players in the NHL. So it's not as though he went in on a slump, but then he went from, in 2024, scoring 10 goals, 16 points, and a +4 rating in 19 games to 4 goals, -16 in 18 games. A huge drop-off. So that's sort of the setup now. Now we get into it. So, Sean, is there anything that jumps off the page when I bring up what happened to Wyatt in the playoffs in 2025?
So I'm going to go down some we're going to talk about his overall game here, but first I want to go through some stat stuff. And first I'm going to talk about the stat that gets ripped the most, but is worth bringing up because it is just what's the one we have the most data for. I mean, this year, for me, like the goals and assists, as you mentioned, Owen, those dropped. For me, I know plus minus is not the greatest stat, and I understand the pros and cons of it more than I'd like to think many people do. But Wyatt Johnston and then ironically Matt Duchene also this year went -16 in the playoffs this year, which ties the NHL record for worst plus minus in a single playoff run in NHL history, tied with Paul Reinhart, former Calgary Flames defenseman, who was absolutely brutalized for -9 in back-to-back games against the Edmonton Oilers, the dynastic Oilers in '83. So that to me is one of the big ones. So we're looking at just overall impact, and you just that's kind of an encapsulation of it. Then I start going and looking at Wyatt Johnston. For me, the big thing I focus on, Owen, with him is, and I want to have the number right here, so I had it pulled up before. I look at the shots here, right? So 2 years ago, in his first NHL postseason, he played roughly the same amount of postseason games every year. 2 seasons ago, he has 55 shots on his 55 shots in the playoffs.
Yep.
Last year has 57. This year that number, and then we're talking about shots on goal. This year it drops to 36. His shot attempts this year drop from 132 to 82. While at that same time happening, his shooting percentage also drops by about 6%. You're also seeing the other thing that just from Wyatt Johnston's game, and I'm just using stats here to illustrate that I'm going to let you guys talk about what you saw on the ice. He goes from a postseason last season where he's averaging about a takeaway per game. He had 16 takeaways, and now takeaways aren't the greatest stat, but he had averaging about a takeaway per game. This year, this postseason, he had 3 takeaways in whatever it was, 19 games. What it shows to me, honestly, and it lines up the stats, and I'm just picking some easier stats that everyone understands. When it shows to me between and combining with the play I watched, Wyatt Johnston wasn't getting to the right places at the right time. He wasn't both defensively, both offensively, and he wasn't where he normally is. And I'm going to throw it back to you guys here on this, on your thoughts of maybe where and why that happened. But to me, when I go through and then I look at some of the video on this, which we unfortunately can't show on this show without being demonetized. That's why, people. That's unfortunately the reason. It's all of those times from his first and second playoff run, Wyatt Johnston's always there at the right time in the right place. And you're like, damn, this guy knows exactly where to be. This postseason, he looked like a rookie. He looked like a guy who wasn't there at the right time in the right place. And I'm not sure if that's pressure. I'm not sure if that's something we need to go deeper. But that, to me, is the numbers and what I saw back that up, where here's a guy who was doing everything, creating, was taking away, was doing all of the little things the right way. And all of a sudden, he's not doing them. He's not at the right time, at the right place. And that was my biggest takeaway there. So I'll let you direct on whether we're going to Sam or you next on that. So,
well, it's funny you bring up takeaways, and we were laughing not because we were sticking our noses up at the stat, although many times we do. It's because Sam, when we were chatting before we started the show, mentioned the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I think the key that Sean brought up that for me is it's not just that Wyatt Johnston was doing those things correctly. Also, if you guys notice, this is the first time I've ever had my own camera angle here, so I'm just going to keep talking because this is nice to look at.
Yeah, Sean, by the way, because of Ludz's absence, this is the first time Sam has been here. We've been in the podcast studio.
Yeah, it's weird in
but
here.
The lounge without having somebody on your right.
Yeah, it's weird. But anyway, no, but what Sean was talking about is that all those things,
keep it on that ISO.
Being there at the right time, being in the right spot, that's not just what Wyatt Johnston was doing well for one playoff or for one season. It's what he's known for as a player. And that's what I think was the most surprising to me, was that it was such a 180 from what he normally does on a daily basis. And that's why the biggest surprise to me after the season was that he didn't have an injury, or at least wasn't reported by Jim Nill that there was a significant injury. Because that was my first
We were all waiting to hear that he was playing
he's got something he pulled or something that he's playing through that's really, because it was it was exactly what Sean said. He was just a step behind the play. He was not in the right spot to get the rebounds. I mean, the stats, I'm not going to read you all the boring stats, but if you go to Money Puck or any of those things, every stat backs this up, that he wasn't getting those rebound chances. He wasn't creating rebound chances. The shot attempts weren't there. The takeaways weren't there. And all the stuff that he did so well wasn't there. So to me, that was the initial excuse, was just, oh, he's dealing with an injury. That's going to kind of wipe it clean. The other side of it for me is that I think we have to look at the fact that he overachieved so much that we just immediately assumed he was going to be the Conn Smythe guy for their team again, right?
That is the interesting question of, is the 24 playoffs, which was his sophomore year as a player, is that above his normal level?
Right.
Or is that the expectation and he dropped? But kind of to Sean's point, if you compare, and again, I know the game changes in the playoffs, but I think this goes to what both of you guys are saying. He had a 16.3 shooting percentage, over 202 shots on goal through the 24-25 regular season, 33 goals, 82 games. Okay. On the flip side, in the playoffs, as Sean mentioned, only 36 shots on goal, and it went down 5%, 11.1 shooting percentage over 18 games. The only thing that really stepped in my glancing at stats looked different was his face-off percentage year over year in the playoffs went up pretty dramatically, which you would expect as a player gets older, learns more tricks and trades in the NHL, and becomes a better face-off man. But the fact that his regular season numbers were so good and then dropped off so substantially in the playoffs is what sparked this thought to begin with.
Well, and the other thing too that's just an intriguing thought process for me on this is, and I always, because the biggest NHL example I always like to use is the Andrew Raycroft example, and I've used this comparison before when I talk about rookies in season, right? Where part of growth and development in the NHL and becoming a bona fide star player is you learn the league, but the league also learns you. And Andrew Raycroft's the example because he wins the Calder as the NHL's best rookie. Looks like he's going to be a future Hall of Fame goalie, all that stuff in year one, and then everyone learns that he really struggles if you make him start moving left to right. And for a Dallas Stars example, Alex Chiasson, who at the end of his career, Alex Chiasson had a really nice little track record turning PTOs into jobs, but Alex Chiasson comes in and he's scoring goals at a clip that was just completely unsustainable as everybody learned who Alex Chiasson is in the lineup. And so now Wyatt Johnston last year, in the postseason prior, he is still on the board and he's still part of the pregame prep and everything like that. But you get into year 3 and you get into what Wyatt Johnston has done before and everything like that. And the whiteboard is up there and everything like that. And so the Edmonton Oilers, the Edmonton Oilers now, when they're prepping for the Dallas Stars, there's no longer Jamie Benn's name is no longer circling the board. We no longer have to worry about what Jamie Benn does. We now start circling Wyatt Johnston's name. We start and same thing happened to Thomas Harley. You start to become the focus of the other team. And not that Wyatt Johnston flew under the radar for Dallas Stars fans, but in your game prep and whether teams plan and everything do for you, when you get to that with what he's done, he's earned the respect of, okay, we got to shut him down. We have to lock him down. And so he takes all of that additional pressure. And so I would be fascinated to hear Wyatt's thoughts, maybe with some truth serum, of how much did the pressure, how much did the extra attention, and how much did all of that kind of come together where all of a sudden he's playing a game and playing in a playoff series that is completely different than ever before, because even with Mikko Rantanen being there, even with Mikko Rantanen driving the bus on everything, Wyatt Johnston now for other teams becomes, hey, this kid is not just a kid. This is a guy who is on top of our list of priorities to stop to win a series. And I would be fascinated with some truth serum to see what Wyatt would say about that, because that's an evolution internal inside your mind, Sam and Owen, that I don't think people can really comprehend until you realize what it's like in a game. And it's like you and I can, like, that's why I'm sure this is one of those would be great for Ask Luds, because I'm sure there's guys in Lud's career where first time around they played somebody and you're like, all right, this is what we do. And then the next series, all of a sudden it becomes much easier to control that player or stop that player.
Yeah, and it's not just that he was circled in that way either, Sean. Is he also drew the tough matchups, right? Pete DeBoer reminded us of that over and over again when we ask about Wyatt, and saying he's not worried about him because he's going up against the big lines, and he did a bunch in Colorado. The Stars didn't always opt for the best on best, whatever you want to call their best, whether it was the Finns, Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen, whatever. They did at times, but they didn't always want to throw that line out there because they wanted Rantanen to get some more space. But Wyatt Johnston's line, well, whoever he was with at the time, drew those matchups a lot. And so that's both sides of it, Sean. You're getting the best from the opponent, and you're also quite literally getting the best of the opponent against you. And that's going to shift things. Now, I guess the conversation shifts to that's not going away. Wyatt Johnston is still going to be circled. Wyatt Johnston is still going to get the tough matchups. Can he now deliver numbers near what we saw last playoffs 2 years ago with that pressure? And that's the key of how good is Wyatt Johnston to us. Wyatt Johnston's a potential captain, a top 6 guy. He's their future center, all these things. Is he their third line center that can be in between, or is he their guy that they're going to rely on to go in all situations and excel in all those situations? And I think that's what we have to see now in his 4th year.
Let's carry that over because I have a question that pertains to that usage matchups about Wyatt next here on the DLS Stars podcast.
First, I'm going to talk about Game Time today. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for the hard-to-get tickets like playoffs and big moments. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, puck drop, kickoff, whatever you want to call it for whatever sport you're interested in. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets no matter what. Game Time is pretty simple. They make it very easy. You go on, you look at the tickets. It has all the pricing up front. You can get those crazy deals if last minute, if there's a couple seats empty in the on the glass for a Stars game, maybe on a Tuesday against Anaheim. You can get down there really easy for, like I said, all-inclusive pricing, so you have no guesswork. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code DLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code DLLS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, let's talk about Shady Rays. And that's why Sam was talking about Game Time, because I have to talk about Shady Rays. You know that moment, the one where you realize, oh no, I just sat on my favorite sunglasses and they broke. Or I left them on the roof of my car. Or I drove over them. Or my dog, which has happened before, found them and chewed just a little bit thinking it was a fun little chew toy. And now there's those little cute little puppy teeth marks in your very expensive sunglasses. Well, one thing changes the game because it's Shady Rays, because you can have sunglasses that are not only made for real life, but they're also seriously good looking, polarized, and they're durable, and they're not stupidly expensive. And if any of those things happen, you can get replacements without a guilt trip, whether it's broken, chewed on, stepped on, thrown through the wash, you name it. Team up with Shady Rays, and we have an exclusive offer for you. Head to shadyrays.com. Use the code DLLS35 for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Okay. I can see a glint in Sean's eye that wants to know more about one of my dogs eating sunglasses. But we were talking about Wyatt, and you were saying,
did they feed them to the chickens, Owen? Owen, did they take them to the chickens?
If it meant keeping the chickens alive, that's probably a good thing, right? Anyway, Wyatt Johnston's usage, you were talking about, can he be that matchup guy? Obviously, there was more trust in him as he was in his 3rd year, believe it or not, just his 3rd year. And so he was facing tougher matchups. So maybe part of it is that. But I don't think that he's ever really shied away from it. The question that I have, and I'll ask Sam first and then Sean, have they given him enough support on his line? I know. I could tell you were smiling right away because, look, you've got Hintz and Duchesne as your center's top 2. Understandably so. Are the best players for Wyatt Johnston on his wings?
No, I don't think they have been. I think that.
And do you think that affects his performance?
It should, right? If you imagine Wyatt Johnston playing with, I'm just going to name any of these Sagans, Duchesnes, even Marchments, Robertson, Rantanen, and then you compare that to Jamie Benn and Evgeny Dodonov, or Jamie Benn and Maverick Bourque. That's not the same level of player, especially because the style of play, right? Wyatt Johnston's a smart guy. He's great in the center, in the middle of the ice. Sean just laid it all out. He's great at being in the right spot at the right time. If you have Jamie Benn, who's one of the slower players on this team, and either a rookie Maverick Bourque or an 36-year-old Evgeny Donov who can still move, none of those guys are necessarily winning a puck on the wall, digging it out and getting it to Wyatt Johnston, or pushing off the defense so that they can curl back and find Wyatt Johnston in the high slot. That's what Wyatt needs, someone that can find him, or Wyatt just needs to understand that on that line, he's going to have to be the guy that goes and gets the puck. But I don't think the Stars want that. I don't think the Stars want him to be the one that's trying to feed other people. He is a good passer, but he's at his best when he's around the net. His elite goals in the playoffs 2 years ago, roofing backhands over goalies from low angles, like that's when Wyatt Johnston shines. So for me, unfortunately, this year, as it stands right now, they don't have a ton of options to give him more help either. If the way we're looking at it, I think we have, maybe Ben and Bourque or those type of players on his wings, unless they move Wyatt up to a wing or on the second line center. So I don't think they've done enough to give him enough support. And I think fans say a lot of things. This is one that they've harped on a lot, is give Wyatt some support. And I don't believe he's gotten it. However, I don't know he can get it right now.
What do you think about that, Sean?
You make $8.4 million in today's NHL. You got to make your own support. I'm going to be the crass person about this, right? You're the fourth highest paid forward on the team. You're making $500,000 less than Miro Heiskanen. You are making that much money, and the team has put that much money into you. Like, you have to create your own. You have to be able to drive your own line. If the Stars are built with now, he probably would have a little bit more support if Mikko Rantanen wasn't there, because there'd be some other money spent around other places and everything like that. But I'm just, to the Stars and to Wyatt Johnston, I get that you can say like, he doesn't have this guy or this guy or this guy, but you can only afford so many players that can play in the top six role that play at that salary. So I'm a bit of a like, this is like, you say, Wyatt Johnston didn't get the support, didn't get everything like that. I look at it like, okay, this playoff was his learning curve. Okay. I give him a pass on this playoff from a long-term career development standpoint, because he now gets to take that, go into the summer, go into next season, and be like, okay, this is how I get through that wall. This was Wyatt Johnston's wall. We always wondered when Wyatt Johnston was going to hit the rookie wall, right? We always wondered when that was going to happen. And he finally hit it this spring in the playoffs, and it was great.
Which is ridiculous, right? To think of rookie wall third-year playoffs.
Exactly. So he hit that wall. Now he gets to break through that wall and do everything that. And you know what? So the reality is, with how the Stars are built, and when you're paying Mikko Rantanen north of $12 million per year, somebody playing with making $8.4 million is going to play with lesser players. And I know there's people saying, like I see Darren Smith's comments here, come on, Sean Rope and others are making that money and they have support. They're playing with the other guys making that much money. And that's a good point by Darren. But if you want to be the 22-year-old face of the franchise that is going to keep driving things and everything, you have to continuously show whoever is in that spot needs to be able to, if a cup contender, needs to be able to drive and figure it out and get through that. It's not, and I'm not saying that he needs to be a point per game player in the playoffs and everything like that, but just the reality is Wyatt Johnston no longer gets the training wheels of, we need this support, we need this. He's paid to be someone who was supposed to be in the Team Canada conversation. Jim Nill said he was in the Team Canada conversation. Like, I am a little bit more, not critical is the wrong word, but I'm like, okay, this kid has earned the higher expectations and we should stop calling him a kid. That should be the last time I use that word. He's a 22-year-old potential superstar in this NHL. Now, show me you can take the word potential off of that.
Yeah, that's but when he's half my age, I'm always going to call him a kid.
But the point is, when we say kid,
I know what your point is.
When we say kid, we're talking about someone up from the AHL, someone in their first or second season who's not someone who is the fourth highest paid forward on the team. And based off when the contracts were given, that Tyler Seguin deal, we kind of know we can attach a bit of an asterisk knowing from when it was given to where it is. So he is, to me, this is a big question mark for the Dallas Stars and Wyatt Johnston. Okay, you know you're not the guy. Mikko Rantanen is the guy, if there is a guy of the forward course. But if you're Wyatt Johnston, you go into this season, okay, now it's your job to prove that you went through that wall, you went through the crash course of that playoffs when your name was circled and all of that. Now go be the guy that proves that we made the right bet giving you $8.4 million per year. Go do that. So
I believe that the Stars brought in Radek Faksa to have more depth for their fourth line.
Yep.
I don't know if they did it with the idea, as we talked about with Glenn Gulletson, the new head coach. Gully did suggest that he's looking at possibly moving Sam Steele up to that second line with Duchesne and Sagan. And I would like to see it. I think the Stars are better off with Wyatt as the center on the third line right now.
Yep.
Not because he can't play a top six role, as Sean was talking about. He's getting paid top six money, but because it gives them way more depth to go Hintz, Duchesne, Johnston, Faksa/Steele on that, in that order. It would be interesting if you assume that you have Robertson, Hintz, and Rantanen on that top line. If you put Wyatt in the middle and ask Matt Duchesne to play the left with Sagan on the right, that's a pretty beefy, bona fide top six. I have no problem with anybody there. I'd be curious if it worked or not as far as Duchesne playing wing versus center, because he's clearly comfortable in the middle.
Yep.
Or do you ask Wyatt to go play left wing and play on his offside? Because I don't think I've ever seen Tyler line up on the left. You could, but why mess with a guy that, Sean, I can see your face. Like, I don't think Tyler's ever lined up as a left.
No, right? That wasn't me disagreeing with you. That was going through the weird.
No, I can tell you were thinking about it, like going, I don't think I've ever seen it either. No. I'm with you there.
I went through it. My brain went to Spezza on the wrong side with Hitch, because I remember we laughed about how Tyler was not subject to that getting put in a spot he never played his entire life. So
it's a good callback, and that's my thing. I really think that, to the people in the chat saying he's got to carry his own line, they've got to be able to build a line around him, because there are matchup problems for other teams facing the Dallas Stars going ahead with Wyatt, Duchesne, Hintz, one after another with separate lines. We talked about how Maverick Bourque needs to step up into a level. That's part of it. I mean, heck, the way how effective Colin Blackwell is, he could be a guy that's the forechecker on that line with Wyatt and Jamie if he wanted to, if they could create something that way. Or maybe Jamie's on the fourth line and you're moving somebody else up. Maybe Radek Faksa gives him a little heaviness in there. Again, I'm not saying, hey, we're going to give him Jason Robertson and see what he does, but you got to find a way. I think it's better if he's spread out is three different lines, because it gives them that ability to go wave after wave.
Yeah, and I think Gulletson, as much as Gulletson said he's going to make some shifts, I believe he's still going to go with the idea of rolling four lines and 3D as much as he possibly can, because he knows the strength of this team is their depth, and it's not going to be the Colorado Avalanche just rolling two lines at the top. But the other side of it is, Sean just said Wyatt Johnston's is Wyatt Johnston a top six forward on this team?
He's a top. Yeah, I think he's a top. I think he's if I'm building my lines, or if I'm just listing my top six forwards.
Just listing your top six. Yeah.
Wait, sorry. I'm listing my top six, like 1 through 6, not building my
lines.
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, he is one of the. He's the top 4 forward on this team. Depending on the.
So that's when it becomes a question of how do they want to use him. If he's a top 4, top 5 of your forward, is it unfair to him at all to put him in that hole? Because it does end up being, it almost ends up being an afterthought. And I'm with you, Sean. I think he's too good of a player to just fall back on, and he hasn't. I mean, he's had success with Ben and Donoff and those type of lines. He's overcome slower forwards that maybe don't fit his style as well. But on the other side of it, you got to find a spot where he's going to flourish. And I almost feel like they're putting a little bit of a handicap on him with the line mates they've given him. I'm just curious whether he'd fit more. You mentioned left wing on the side. Obviously, Rantanen changed the thought of the Robertson, Hintz, Johnston, or any of those type of things. But I just am going to keep thinking back this year. I hope Gulletson and his staff try everything with Wyatt Johnston, because in your head, when you're writing it down, Wyatt Johnston in the 3 spot, that's amazing. That's depth. That's a spot. But if it's constantly being put with a guy like, and nothing against Jamie Benn, we love Jamie Benn, but he's not a guy that's going to push the offense, and he's going to be a guy that's trailing, getting back into his own end and putting his line in a tougher spot sometimes.
And make no mistake that while we're talking about him being on the quote-unquote third line, he was the highest usage forward in the regular season for Dallas that played more than 20 games. Why do I use that qualifiers? Because Mikko Rantanen averaged 1907 in the 20 games he played in the regular season for Dallas. Wyatt Johnston was 1856, and it's like, okay, he's the 6th highest usage average on the team, but the first 4 are all defensemen.
Yeah.
Right. Heiskanen 1, Harley 2, Lindell 3, and Cece, who came in for 31 games, was number 4. So while we talk about Wyatt being on the quote unquote third line, it's just one of 3 lines in the sense of how the Stars play. Now, will Gulitson's system change that a little bit? Will he like to spread it out evenly?
Right.
Or is he going to lean a little bit? I mean, Wyatt still plays he played a minute more than Jason Robertson, a minute and a half more than Matt Duchene. And Roope Hintz only played 16:53.
Roope loves the short shift.
He's notorious for getting off the ice pretty quickly. So all those things come into play, Sean.
Yeah, and I'm going to make this point really quick. And this actually, one of our comments said he needs to stay at center based off his face-off stats from last season. I think that's a really good point to bring up, just of why he doesn't need to quote-unquote stay at center, because you both know that I am become more and more of I don't believe in much of the left wing, center, right wing philosophy in hockey anymore. I think we're becoming closer and closer to its 3 forwards, and it's way more based off your arrival time. It's your F1, F2, and F3. We have this traditional bubble hockey mentality just because it's easier to label. So you can move, I think Wyatt Johnston, when we talk about moving guys up and down the lineup, moving different spots, I think Wyatt could play on any line, and you could start on any wing, left or right or center or whatever, because so much of how teams play now is who arrives first, who arrives second, who arrives third. And when it comes to faceoffs, right, the Stars historically have been one of the better faceoff teams because players, they have 2 faceoff guys per line. Jamie Benn has not been a full-time center since the 2010-2011 season, maybe 2011-2012, and he still is one of the best left-handed faceoff men in the NHL, continues to take left-sided draws every single opportunity. So from a Wyatt Johnston kind of perspective, I think, like I said, hey, I want him to drive his own line. I want him to do that. But he also has that versatility, and this goes back to your point, Simba. Test everything out. Because the big word I talked about was arrival. Who arrives first? Who arrives second? When and how do you work off of that? I think Wyatt Johnston is one of those players who has the ability, especially with a new coach, and to kind of work off that, where you could find out a lot of fun, creative things to kind of get him going one way or the other. And then the other one, and then I will take us to our ad break, Owen, is the fact that, are we talking about Wyatt Johnston as a playoff problem or a regular season problem? Because we can roll Wyatt Johnston as a third-line center all regular season, and he will have 65 to 70 points because he will feast on a third-line matchup for 82 regular season games. He will absolutely.
It's not a problem in the regular season at all.
It is. So this goes back to the question of the big picture for Glenn Gulitson as he starts the season of, he said, hey, we got to add that 1%, using his line, 1% every single day to get playoff ready. So how do you not get blinded by Wyatt Johnston having a 6-game point streak playing on the third line in October when you realize, hey, that's not really the end goal right now. The end goal is what we do after April. And these are all fascinating things with where Wyatt goes. So, ad break, Owen, if that's where we want to go. So
that's exactly where we want to go. We'll do that right now here on DLLS.
And I have the first one. We will go to, we'll talk about some branded bills. Whether you need a snapback, trucker, fitted, beanies, or tees, branded bills have you covered with performance and style. Are you looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd? Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order, and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel they need. They have partnerships with 40 colleges as part of their campus collection. Includes TCU, Texas Tech, and Texas as well. So, if you head to brandedbills.com and use the code BBDLLS, you'll get 15% off your first order. So again, BBDLLS for 15% off your first order.
Yeah, I'm going to talk now about Monarch Money because we know that finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money makes it simple. They give you a personal CFO and a personal command center, putting all of your accounts, investments, and everything else in one place so you can get a clear financial picture at the drop of a hat, snap of a finger, whatever other cliche you want to throw out there. It's more than just your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center. Don't just manage your money, start building wealth with 50% off your first year when you listen to DLS. That's 50. That's the big bucks. Start managing your finances to build the life you actually want. With all your accounts, credit cards, and investments in one place, you'll actually know where your money stands without the hassle. The finance tool people actually love. Join over 1 million households named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, and over 30,000 5-star reviews for the app. That's pretty good. Pretty good evidence there. Financial stress is one of the top reasons that relationships and things fall apart. So don't let that happen with Monarch Money. Makes it simple. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use the code DLS at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code DLS.
All right, Sam, Sean, thank you very much. We could probably keep going on Wyatt, but we have some other things to get to, and we'll circle back, especially when Luds is back on the show, because I want to get his take on some of the technical things of Wyatt, but also that combination about, or the conversation about duos, right? Whether it's, do you have him with somebody else as a duo and then fill in that line, or is he the outlier? Because you have Duchesne and Sagan. Is it Hintz and Rantanen? Is it Hintz and Robertson? Is it Robertson? There's some questions there, but I think we should probably do that for another show. There are some interesting NHL news and notes that are timely, so I want to get to them first, and then we're going to circle back to another topic that we have, depending on how much time we have left, because these have to do with something that we found out either today or could change by the minute. And we talked about RFA stuff last week. Sean wasn't on. He and I have been having this conversation anyway. We're going to circle back to that in just a minute. Before that, Sean, Nicklas Backstrom. This is fascinating. The long time, 18 years with the Washington Capitals, hasn't played an NHL game since October 29th, 2023. So when this season starts, it'll be 2 full years since he hit the ice. He's going to play hockey again. He's not retiring as he goes to the Swedish Hockey League for, I don't know how you say that. Is it Björnus?
I think it's Brynäs. I think it's Brynäs, but I'm not. I'm going to be butchered for how poorly I pronounced it either way. So, but he's back to the SHL. Yeah. We say it that way. Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's an interesting move because it's and I just, once again, this is the reason I will also be butchered for my poor pronunciation. I work with a bunch of Swedes over at Elite Prospects. The parent company for Elite Prospects is actually Swedish, and so I was talking with a couple people from over there and seeing some commentary on that. And they were, one of their big hopes about Backstrom coming back, and he's 37, and him playing in the SHL. They're hoping that this is it's good for just to get Nicklas Backstrom, seeing back on the ice again, and everything like that. But one of the things that they're kind of hoping is can kind of be that first wave of bringing players who played in the NHL for a long time, who are Swedish, coming back and maybe finishing their career in Sweden in a soft retirement, right? It's kind of, and I'm intentionally bringing this up on a show that Luds isn't on. It's the way that MLS became the soft retirement league in soccer, Owen, right? So it's
soccer talk without Luds.
Exactly. So it's one of the big ones was one of my bosses I work with over there, Peter, who is a Swede who lives in Tampa. He's like, as much as he loves watching Victor Hedman right now, he hopes at the end of Victor Hedman's career, maybe for a year or two, Victor Hedman goes and plays one more year in Sweden. And so it was a fascinating topic to me just to think about just kind of the career path and just from how the SHL is going to, obviously it's one team trying to make their team better as well at the signing, but kind of the whole of taking a wide scale league that is considered probably third, fourth, fifth best league in the world, depending on how we want to have that argument.
I'm going to go with third. You think?
Third
behind the NHL and KHL? Or are we suggesting the AHL might be there as well?
See, that's where the problem is the dynamics of that question, Owen, because it's you and I both, it's the depth versus if we went, my quick elevator pitch for this debate is, how do we frame it? Is it the Gagarin Cup champion versus the Calder Cup champion? Or are we going, are we talking Premier League style strength where if I throw, I believe the AHL
You're talking about
is
a mid-table team, like if you just threw the Rockford Ice Hogs out there against the Kunlun Red Star from China.
Yes. The AHL is a deeper league.
That is a great callback.
Exactly. There you go. Yes, the AHL is a deeper league. The KHL has a better ceiling. So there is the Swedish league. The Swedish league is, I would put it right at the kind of right after those two in the conversation. Obviously, Lian Bichsel would definitely disagree because Lian decided to go over there for. So in Lian Bischel's mind, it's probably the second best league, better than the AHL, according to Lian. But for that league, and I think we try to talk about hockey topics beyond DFW just because that's how we fill shows in mid-July. But I think it's a fascinating kind of thought process for a league and for players of how do you – we often think, oh, the NHL is the end of a career, right? And I also wonder, and no one brought this up, but I do wonder if people look at like, hey, Jágr went back to the Czech Republic and continued to play. And obviously no one's playing to 52 like that or whatever it was. But the opportunity to continue to put your time into North America and then add a couple more in a European style that's a little less physically taxing. I think it's a really interesting play by Backstrom, and it would be fun to see some players go over and do that. Like, I don't want to see, like, Victor Hedman was the example used, right? But like, I don't want to see Victor Hedman use like a player like that. I don't want to see him at the end of his career too slow for the NHL. But if he can still go play in Sweden and do that, like, I think it's an interesting precedent that could play out well. So somebody get me on track, please, because I'm not.
He's meandering. That's right. Come on back over. Come
I'm
on.
just gonna say how good was Nicklas Backstrom his passing to Ovechkin.
Well, it was an incredible.
Man.
Talk about duos.
He was so fun to watch. His saucer passes. He was one of those few guys. Now pretty much everyone can do it, but back then he would throw saucer passes that he didn't need any space between where he was launching the pass and the stick that's in front of him. It would get off the ice immediately, and it was beautiful to watch. So that's my take of the SHL argument we're talking about here.
Well, not really an argument, just the fact that he popped back up. Let's pivot, Sean.
Real quick. One of my deep cuts, like, videos I'd like someone to find for me, and I've asked Dylan, our Russian scout, to see if he can help me find. So the 2012-13 KHL season, the first half of the 2012 KHL season during the NHL lockout. We all know Ovechkin went over to go play with Moscow Dynamo, right? Once again, topics I can talk about without Luds here. It's pretty cool that it was Backstrom went over as well, who was obviously just first half of the 2012-2013 season. Backstrom and Ovechkin went over to play in the KHL together. Backstrom only played 19 games but had 25 points. Ovechkin had 40 points in 31 games. For a KHL season where those two led the team despite playing, they led the team in scoring despite playing half the games, and everyone else was still for the full year. So I've tasked our pal, my Russian scout Dylan, to see if he can help me find video, because I'd be fascinated to watch those two. Like, I've seen obviously even the commercial of them. It was such the on ice chemistry led to the acting chops of the of the off ice commercial. But I would have loved to see that. To find that KHL footage before Ovechkin goes back there, and then we can talk about it with Luds. So
you're gonna say maybe you see it again because Luds is kicking Ovechkin out of the NHL as soon as he hit the records. Maybe
we'll talk about retirements, right?
Maybe it's not the KHL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna probably have to carry this over, but let's start it now because we have a couple minutes before our ad break. RFAs avoiding arbitration. We had this conversation last week. Sean, you weren't on the show, but we talked about 13 players and teams. So it was 11 players and 2 team elected arbitrations signed up before the deadline in early July. And then it's been slowly being picked off. Well, this weekend, deadlines make deals, right? We had 4 players, Siplikov with the Islanders, Soderblom with the Blackhawks, Connor Timmins with the Sabres, and then Jaden Struble with the Canadiens, I think. Just over the course of the weekend, boom, 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 boom. 4 players signed, all 2-year deals, all ranging between 1.4 and 2.75 million, depending on the player. So all of a sudden, we're down to just 2 of the possible 13 cases still open and headed for their arbitration dates. One of them is Nicholas Robertson, we did a segment on last week, and the other is Winnipeg defenseman Dylan Samberg. And Sean, you actually posted that, you drew my attention to this. Samberg, his ask versus the team ask was released by Elliot Friedman, $2.5 million, and because he's eligible for free agency next year, he's only able to, through arbitration, sign a 1-year deal. Now, of course, they haven't had the arbitration hearing yet, so he could still sign a longer deal, but The Jets ask is 2.5. The player ask is 6. And again, this is a negotiating starter, right? It doesn't mean that that's necessarily what they will sign for. It'll probably be somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, and one of the biggest confusions when it comes to arbitration is just in North American sports, obviously baseball or football tend to set the precedent for how people think, right? Like I think one of the reasons people will always say, oh my God, couldn't you just rework a contract or whatever? That's because that's something you could do in the NFL, right? And I think people know how arbitration works in baseball because that's been better covered, frankly, in baseball than it has been in hockey and across the general populace. And so in baseball, right, it's I bring a number, the team brings a number, and the arbitrator picks which number is right, and that's it. That's not how hockey works. In hockey, both the team brings a number, the player brings a number, and the arbitrator basically goes through and picks basically somewhere in between. They could side with one. They could side with one side over the other, and it's all of a negotiating tactic. Like so, the player asking for $6 million, people are going to say, hey, it's a 22, 23 point score or whatever he was this year. Like ask it for $6 million. You're like that's way above your market value. Well, he's asking for that because at the end of the day, he probably wants somewhere around 4.5, right? That's probably where he really wants to be. And the team would like that number to be closer to 4. But because we have to go through the whole song and dance, they probably both have a number. Like this is probably a negotiation between $4 and $5 million. Realistically, is probably the rough point. And so the Jets are giving the lowest possible number that still feels fair to the arbitrator, and then the player is giving the highest possible number that still feels fair, so that they can kind of work their way back to the middle. The Stars, like the Stars example I always think of on this is it was when Jamel Smith took the Stars to arbitration, and Jamel Smith, you talk about teams using tactics to tank a player's value as much as possible. When Jamel Smith filed for arbitration, one of the first things Jamel Smith filed for arbitration, the Stars were never.
By the way, Sean, this was August of 2018.
Yeah. But I'm just giving an example of a arbitration case I know close hand because I had both sides talking to me as it was going on. So the Stars, Jamel Smith filed for arbitration. The Stars never planned to give Jamel Smith a 2-way deal. However, they submitted a 2-way deal to the arbitrator because it was the point of we have to offer the least potential value to work from. The Stars also, about a week before arbitration when it happened in offseason, they waived Jamel Smith, so he cleared, and so that they could go into the case with the arbitrator. Look, we waived him. He could have been claimed by 31 other teams. What case does this guy have? So arbitration is it is a not so, and if you've watched Jeremy Swayman's public comments about it, it's something where it can be a very it's not the most fun conversation for players to be in a room and have people try to pick out all your flaws as you go.
And we will do more of that next here on DLLS. But first, we have to talk about being a diehard. I said it at the top of the show, and I'm going to reiterate it here. We have a $36 NFL training camp / Cowboys training camp introductory offer. Go to alldls.com/intro. Use the QR code Sean is pointing to you at the bottom of the screen. Scan that. That'll take you to the site. You can get a huge discount off the normal annual price of being a diehard. In addition to getting a huge discount, you get all the access that you would, the top level of service of being a diehard. That includes a free t-shirt for the first year of your annual subscription. And what better way to use that than to get the diehard subscription at a big discount and then cash in on one of the new Dallas collection t-shirts that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Look at these. I did hear Sam say it might be nightmare inducing, the one with the combined mascots. A little creepy. But look at the Robin Ventura getting the business from Nolan Ryan. Check out the barbecue sign at the top left. The big text. There's actually corn dogs underneath him on the right. Look at this one.
Thought he was gonna
into
have
the
I thought he was gonna have
screen.
the mascot one. I was scared.
This is Ludz's shirt. Dallas All Y'all. Is that a XXX, I think? Yeah, Luddy's a big fella. He's a brute. That is a really nice looking shirt. I almost picked that one out. Instead, I picked the Nolan and Ventura. Yeah.
How's it look on you?
It looks like I'm wearing a cape.
God, it's big.
Yeah, the 3X. I could swim in this. Sam could probably get 3 of them in here.
What does it sound like when the shirt is?
I don't not particularly good. We should do a Stars training camp sale. But in addition to that, you get a discount on events. And the Stars are not at the moment doing a trip, but the Cowboys are. You can go with the Cowboys and DLS to Vegas in November for Monday Night Football against Ardell's favorite, the Raiders. Check it out, alldls.com. Look at the events. There's the QR code there. Sign up to be at Diehard Cheap and get a ton of perks and the writings of these two guys. Okay. Anything you guys want to add before we get into our last topic about arbitration RFAs? And do you think that either one of those will end up actually going? Sean, I guess my last question for you is the fact that the numbers are out now kind of feels like they're going to a case.
Possibly. I mean, there's still time to get it done. There's deadlines and things have to get submitted. And so it's possible, but as you said, they can only get the 1-year deal done. And so if they can get a number and they can come to agreement on something longer, I think that becomes the big question for both sides of, hey,
is that the agent is at this point trying to avoid arbitration by leaking the, or providing the information to Elliott, or is the league giving that to him?
Yeah, it's not as much leaking. It's something where it's just in today's NHL. I'm not sure who actually gave it to Elliott, and obviously I don't. But it's something that, just like salaries are all public now, that stuff is pretty much public now too, because there's arbitration also includes looking at player comps, and you'll in those meetings an agent will come and say, hey, our guy's like this guy, and the team will be like, no, he's like this guy, and there'll be kind of that debate and everything like that. So it's more of, it's going to get out either way. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I like ice cream more than popsicles.
Okay. Good to know. Depends on which kind of popsicle it is.
Yeah,
but
I had a popsicle yesterday over by Toyota Music Factory. The 2 popsicles, $12.
What? That's outrageous.
$12.
Wait, who asked him about ice cream?
I thought you did.
Neither. No, he had nothing to add about RFAs, so he pivoted. I could do a whole show on ice cream, but let's go to this.
I know you do. Is this the reveal where you pull a tub out of the cooler and just eat it for the final 10 minutes?
Oh, that would be sick.
That would be great. Then I'd be asleep on my drive home.
Oh,
let's talk about recent NHL retirements, and it's great that Sean's here because there's 2 players in particular that I want him to talk about. Sam, feel free to jump in on any of these guys that you want to say on. Previously mentioned players that were retiring, we already knew about Pat Maroon, David Savard, TJ Oshie. We've talked about that. Cal Clutterbuck, Marc-Andre Fleury, Alec Martinez. More recently, Matt Martin of the Islanders retired in June, which means there's now only 4 players left in the league without a visor. Jamie Benn, Ryan O'Reilly, Zach Bogosian, and Ryan Reeves. Be interesting who, as we talk about, will be the last one standing. But the 2 that, I'll mention the other ones. Blake Wheeler, Nick Bonino, Tyler Johnson, Riley Nash, Nathan Beaulieu, all NHLers over the last couple of weeks announced their retirement. But the 2 that I really wanted to get Sean's take on, again, Sam, if there's any of those that you're like, I have strong feelings about this player, I want to say something, dive right in. But it's Yaroslav Halak, who was a very good goalie in the NHL for a long time. And then the Christian Fischer announced retirement. And the reason why that one stands out is because, Sean, he's not a 35-year-old that's played 15 years in the NHL.
Yeah, and it was actually my good pal, Max Boltman, who broke the story on the Christian Fischer retirement. And Christian Fischer is retiring at 28 years old, a guy who was a former first-round pick. And even though he had kind of fell down the depth chart this year, was still a pretty serviceable NHLer in a third-line role. Was moved at the deadline. Claimed on waivers near the deadline. And he had job offers. He had job offers, but he basically had, and it wasn't there's an injury or anything like that. It was very much you know what? I've done this. I've pretty fulfilled by having played as much as I had in the NHL. I've got, I also have to plan for the rest of my life. And so he he's retired. He's going to live in Arizona. He's going to work. He's already got a business thing lined up that he's going to start working on. And it's just an interesting decision to be made by someone who probably would have had an NHL deal this summer. Probably would have gotten maybe a 2-year deal, and decided basically, you know what, I'm not going to keep grinding through it, and I'm going to start working on the next phase of my life because there's more than hockey to me. And it's an interesting thing to hear someone open up about. And I would encourage you to go look, if you just Google Christian Fischer retirement. Max Boltman's got a really good story on it, because some good open conversation from a player who could still be playing in the NHL right now if he wanted to.
The interesting part for me is as Sean was talking about his introspectiveness, is you always wonder, because you typically see the other side, the players that have the fire to keep playing. Yep. And their body breaks down and they can't do it anymore. And they have to come to the harsh grip of reality that they go, I can't do it. My body simply won't allow me to do it. I still have more in me. We talked about that with John Klingberg, thinking that he had more in him and he just couldn't do it, had the surgery, came back well, and here he is playing, and it's really a good thing. And with Fischer, and I'm glad that people like he are aware enough, self-aware enough to know that that's right for him, because not everybody needs to play until their body breaks down and they just get cast aside or whatever. I get that. You just hope that in a player who's only 28, that they don't look back and regret it, because they're like, oh, I realize I miss it. Now, again, 28, when you're away, maybe he turns around and comes back, but I get the feeling that he's put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, and I imagine, I haven't read the piece Sean's talking about. I'm definitely going to, but I'm imagining there's a lot of people he spoke to, and a lot of different areas that he spoke to, and went through a lot of steps to do that, because as you said, 99.99% of hockey players have it in them until they are not able to do it anymore. So for someone to be that honest with themselves, I'm sure they went through every possible step of the journey. And the only reference I have is that I had to end my college hockey and lacrosse career a year early. My senior year, I wasn't able to play anything because of concussions. So it's a terrible feeling, but it's something that I don't regret. And that's what we hope, I guess, is the situation for Fischer, that he doesn't look back on it, because he's able to live a long, happy life after hockey.
Let's talk about a couple minutes left, Sean. Yaroslav Halak and what he means to the goalie union.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, because he's technically announced his retirement, but he last played during the 22-23 season, right? And so we knew there wasn't necessarily it was more so of the league retiring him than him retiring on the league, right? Like, so he did have a PTO with Carolina, I think it was last year during the season. And I remember one of the things I heard about him, and his agent is Alan Walsh, and I remember Alan said something about this last summer. Halak finishes his career with 295 career wins. Now, not everyone is chasing legacies and everything like that, but that 300 number is a nice little round number for a goalie to chase for career wins. And I mean, Halak was that guy who, if you remember some of those Montreal Canadiens teams before Carey Price, right? He was a gamer, and he was a guy who took them deeper in the playoffs than they probably should have. And he was the consummate 1B goalie who, because he was 5'10", probably no one ever trusted him with the full-time starting gig, right? If Yaroslav Halak was 6'1", 6'2", probably still would have been in the NHL the past 2 years, and probably would have gotten more of a starting job at some point. But everyone kept looking for the taller, younger goalie to supplant him, and he was always the guy that was the supporting piece. So
when you talk about him that way, of this height, it always makes me think of the former Stars backup Richard Bachman. Technically sounds so good.
I saw him the other day.
Did you really? What's he up to?
I saw him. He was working at a goalie camp with some USA Hockey stuff about a month back. So he's doing pretty well. He's a coach for he's a goalie coach for the Iowa Wild right now, and
which is the Minnesota Wild AHL affiliate. We said that about Bachman a lot. If he was 6'2", he would have been a starter in this league for a while. It was just
pretty good athlete.
Yeah, great athlete, good technique, and just guy, GM's going, oh, he's just not quite big enough.
Yep.
Which happens.
Been there.
Anything you guys, Sam? I'll give Sam a shot at this.
Oh, heck yeah.
Blake Wheeler, Nick Bonino, Tyler Johnson, Riley Nash, Nathan Beaulieu, Matt Martin. Anybody that you want to wax poetically about for about 30 seconds?
Yeah, I'll say Blake Wheeler because he's one of those leaders that everyone talks about Jamie Benn being one of the better captains or whatever, and Blake Wheeler was always that guy, that leader that he helped just get people so adjusted to different teams up there, different coaches up there. They went from terrible to all of a sudden good, President's Trophy. It was just a fun experience to watch him, and then obviously he went to New York, but he's also one of few, I don't know how many are left, former Atlanta Thrashers, which is a unique one, right? So
he also had the great line a couple years ago. I want to say it was when we were doing bubble interviews because of the whole issue with COVID. And he said something about Jamie Benn. He said, every time he asked me to fight him every single shift during a game, or every time for the last 5 years or something like that. I'm kind of butchering that one, but I just remember him saying that, and it gave you a peek into the Jamie Benn persona on the ice that you didn't necessarily hear all the time. But I always liked Wheeler. I thought he was a great player. I've obviously really started to follow him when he moved to Boston and played for the Bruins, and what a passer. Just an incredible playmaker. And I know late in his career when Bones went up there and took the captaincy away and talked about needing a culture change, I don't think it was all about Blake Wheeler there, but still heck of a player. Really enjoyed watching him play. So, all right, that's it.
We did it again.
We finished the show in the middle of July, late July, heading towards August as we wrap this one up. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Sam. Thanks to Elijah. And thanks to you, the viewers, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central Time right here on DLLS.
We all silly like the mayor.